I remember the exact second my career was taken from me. We were all in the meeting room. My manager smiled at him and said he earned the promotion. I felt proud for a second. I really did. I had helped him get here. Then he started talking. He said he had been quietly fixing major errors in my work for months. He said I was falling behind. That I wasn't ready for leadership. I couldn't breathe. Every report he showed. I built those systems. Every chart. I made them from scratch. But no one looked at me. No one asked me anything. They just nodded. I sat there frozen while they clapped for him. And when the meeting ended, he leaned close and whispered, "This is how the real world works." That's when I knew. This wasn't a mistake. This was planned. And somehow he had proof. But I never gave him access. So how did he get it? A few months before that meeting, he was the one struggling. He came to me late one night, stressed and desperate. He said he was going to lose his job if he didn't improve. I felt bad for him. So I helped. I showed him how I organized my work. I explained my system step by step. I even stayed late to fix his reports more than once. He kept saying thank you. He called me the smartest person on the team. I believed him. Looking back now, there were small signs I ignored. He asked very specific questions. Not just how, but why. He wanted to understand everything deeply. At the time I thought he was trying to learn. Now I realize something else. He wasn't just learning how to do the work. He was learning how I did it. And maybe, how to use it against me. But that still didn't explain one thing. How did he get access to my files? The day after the meeting, I opened one of my old reports. Something felt off. The version saved in the system didn't match the one I remembered. There were edits I didn't make. Small changes, but important ones. Numbers slightly shifted. Notes rewritten in a different tone. It looked like my work. But it wasn't fully mine. My heart started racing. I checked another file. Same thing. And another. Someone had been inside my work. Quietly changing things. Then I checked the access logs. There was his name. Multiple times. Late nights. Weekends. Times I wasn't even logged in. I stared at the screen trying to understand. Why would he change my work? And then it hit me. If my work looked flawed and he fixed it, he would look like the hero. But one question still burned in my mind. How long had this been happening? I didn't confront him. Not yet. That I kept digging. I went back weeks. Then months. The pattern became clear. He would access my files. Make small edits. Then later present improved versions to management. It was perfect. Subtle enough that no one would question it. Clear enough to make him look better. I felt sick. I had helped him build the exact system he used to destroy me. But something didn't add up. He shouldn't have had that level of access. Not without approval. So I checked permissions. And that's when I saw it. His access had been upgraded. Approved. By someone higher up. That stopped me cold. This wasn't just him. Someone else had opened the door for him. The question was, who? I didn't sleep that night. Part of me wanted to go straight to HR. To expose everything. But I knew how that would go. He was the newly promoted manager. I was the underperformer. It would turn into my word against his. And I would lose. So I made a different choice. I stayed quiet. At work the next day I acted normal. I even congratulated him. He smiled like nothing happened. That smile told me everything. He thought I was done. Good. Because I wasn't going to fight him emotionally. I was going to outplay him. If he wanted to use systems and data, so would I. I opened a new document. And I started tracking everything. Every file. Every change. Every decision he made. I wasn't just watching him now. I was building something. Something he wouldn't see coming. But I still needed one thing. Proof of who gave him access. I started looking into access approvals. Most of them were routine. That is, it stood out. The request was marked as urgent. The approval came fast. Too fast. And then I saw the name. Not my manager. Someone higher. Someone who barely knew me. That didn't make sense. Why would they approve access to my work without asking me? I dug deeper. The request note said he needed access to support team performance. That was vague. Too vague. And then I noticed something else. The timing. The request was sent just days after he started asking me all those detailed questions. That wasn't a coincidence. That was the moment he switched from learning to planning. I leaned back, staring at the screen. This wasn't random. This was structured. Step by step. And I had walked right into it. But now I understood something important. He wasn't just taking my work. He was building a case. And I needed to see the full picture before I made my move. After his promotion, everything changed. He had control now. More meetings. More visibility. More power. And he used it. He started assigning me smaller tasks. Less important work. In meetings, he would correct me in front of others. Always calm. Always polite. But it was clear. He was pushing a story. That I wasn't capable. And people were starting to believe it. That hurt more than anything. But I didn't react. I kept working. And I kept watching. Then one day he gave me a project. A simple one. Too simple. That's when I knew. This was a test. Not for success. But for failure. And I had to decide. Do I play along? Or do I change the game? I did the project exactly as asked. Nothing more. Nothing less. But behind the scenes I did something else. I saved everything. Every version. Every note. Every change. Time-stamped. Clean. Untouchable. Then I added one more step. I documented his instructions. Word for word. I wanted a clear record. Something went wrong. It wouldn't be on me. A few days later he reviewed my work. And just like I expected, he found issues. He pointed them out in a meeting. But this time I was ready. I calmly explained that I followed his instructions exactly. And I showed the record. For the first time, he paused. Just for a second. It was small. But I saw it. And in that moment I realized something. He wasn't used to being questioned. Which meant, he might make mistakes. After that meeting his behavior shifted. Subtle but clear. He stopped putting everything in writing. More verbal instructions. More vague directions. He was adjusting. That told me I was getting close to something. So I adapted too. I started sending follow-up emails after every conversation. Simple. Clear. Just confirming what we discussed. Now everything had a record. He couldn't avoid it. But then something unexpected happened. He approved one of my projects. Without changes. That had never happened before. At first I felt relieved. Then I looked closer. The approval didn't make sense. There were gaps. Details missing. He wouldn't normally allow that. Plus, he needed it to pass. That's when the idea hit me. What if he wasn't just controlling my work? What if he was under pressure too? I started paying attention to his meetings. Who he spoke to. What he prioritized. And a pattern started forming. He was pushing results fast. Too fast. Cutting corners. Skipping steps. It looked good on the surface. But underneath, it was unstable. Then I found something important. A report he submitted to leadership. It included data from my work. But it was incomplete. And some numbers didn't match. That wasn't just a mistake. That was risk. Serious risk. If someone looked closely, it could fall apart. I stared at the screen thinking. He had built his position on control. But now that control was slipping. And the higher he went, the harder the fall would be. For the first time since the meeting, I felt something different. Not anger. Not fear. But clarity. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about timing. I wasn't the only one noticing things. One of my coworkers started asking questions. Careful ones. About reports. About decisions. I stayed cautious. But I listened. Over time we talked more. Nothing direct. Nothing risky. Just observations. And slowly a picture formed. Others had seen small issues too. But no one had proof. That's when I realized something. I wasn't alone. But I needed to be smart. If I moved too early, it would collapse. So I kept building quietly. Then my coworker said something that changed everything. There's an audit coming. My heart stopped. An audit meant everything would be reviewed. Every report. Every decision. Including his. Suddenly, the timeline became real. The audit was scheduled in a few weeks. That gave me time. Not much. But enough. I reviewed everything again. Every file he touched. Every report he submitted. And I organized it. Clean. Clear. Simple. No emotions. Just facts. Then I made another move. I applied for a role in a different department. Quietly. No one knew. Things went wrong. I needed an exit. But if things went right, I wanted options. At work I stayed the same. Focused. Calm. Invisible. He was getting more confident. More relaxed. He thought he had won. That was exactly what I needed. Because people make the biggest mistakes when they feel safe. And I had a feeling he was about to make one. It happened during a team review. He presented a major update. Big numbers. Big claims. Everyone was impressed. But I noticed something. One number didn't match. Just one. Small enough to ignore. Big enough to matter. I checked my records. It was wrong. Not by accident. But because he used an older version of my data. One that had gaps. Questioned. He wouldn't be able to explain it clearly. I looked around the room. No one else caught it. Not yet. This was the kind of mistake that could grow. If it reached the audit, it could trigger deeper questions. I sat there quiet thinking, do I point it out now? Or do I let it build? I closed my notebook slowly and made my choice. Because this wasn't just a mistake. This was the beginning of his collapse. And I was going to let it happen. I didn't say anything about the wrong number. Not in that meeting. Not after. I let it sit. At first it felt strange. Every part of me wanted to correct it. That's what I always did. But this time I stayed quiet. Because this wasn't just an error anymore. It was a thread. And I needed to see how far it went. Over the next few days that same number showed up again. In another report. Then in a presentation. Each time it got repeated. Trusted. Expanded. No one questioned it. Not even him. That told me something important. He wasn't checking the details anymore. He was moving too fast. And speed creates gaps. Then something even bigger happened. Leadership asked him to present those results to a higher level review. A much bigger audience. Higher stakes. More attention. I felt my pulse rise. Because now that small mistake. It wasn't small anymore. It was about to be seen by people who actually checked things. I looked at my notes, then at the calendar. The audit was getting closer. No. So was the moment everything could break. The office felt different that week. Tense. Quiet. Focused. Everyone knew the audit was coming. But he looked confident. Too confident. He started pushing more work through faster than before. Approving things without deep review. Relying on summaries instead of details. It was like he was racing against something. Or hiding from it. I kept documenting. Every rushed approval. Every skipped step. Then I noticed something new. He started asking me questions again. Simple ones at first. Then more specific. It was almost like before when he first came to me for help. But this time it felt different. There was urgency in his voice. A kind of pressure. Like he needed answers fast. That confirmed what I suspected. He didn't fully understand the system anymore. He had built his role on control. But now the scale was too big. And he was losing grip. Then he asked me one question that made everything click. Can you double-check the data in that report? I looked at him calm. Because that report was the one with the wrong number. I smiled and said I would review it. But I didn't fix anything. I checked the data carefully. I confirmed the issue. Then I documented it. Fully. With timestamps. And I saved it. But I didn't send it. Not yet. Instead I replied with something simple. The data matches what was used in your last version. That was true. And it placed the responsibility exactly where it belonged. On him. He read the message. Paused. Then said, okay. That was it. No follow-up. No correction. He moved on. And that told me everything. He wasn't looking for accuracy. He was looking for reassurance. And I didn't give it to him. The next day the report went forward. Unchanged. I watched as it got approved for the higher level review. No one caught it. Not yet. But I knew something they didn't. The audit team would. And when they did, they wouldn't just see a mistake. They would start asking questions. And those questions would lead somewhere. Somewhere he wouldn't be ready for. The audit team arrived quietly. No big announcement. Just calendar invites and closed-door meetings. They started with random checks. Old reports. New reports. Process. Access logs. That last one made my chest tighten. Access logs meant visibility. Who opened what? Who changed what? I stayed calm. Everything I did was clean. Documented. Clear. But him, I wasn't so sure. Over the next few days I noticed small shifts. People being called into meetings. Follow-up questions being asked. Details being rechecked. Then one afternoon I saw something that made my heart race. He was pulled into a longer meeting. With the audit team. Door closed. Voices low. Time stretching. When he came out, his face was different. Still controlled. But tighter. Less confident. That was the first visible crack. But it wasn't public. Not yet. The next morning I got an email. From the audit team. Requesting clarification on a report. Not just any report. The one with the wrong number. I stared at the screen. This was it. The thread had been pulled. I opened the email slowly. The question was simple. Can you confirm the source of this data? That was it. No accusation. No pressure. Just a question. But I knew what it meant. They had seen something. I took my time responding. I attached my original version. Clean. Correct. Complete. Then I added one line. This is the version I created before final updates. No blame. No emotion. Just fact. I hit send. And waited. A few hours later I saw him walking fast across the office. Straight into another meeting. This time with leadership. The energy had changed. People were noticing. Whispers starting. Nothing loud. But enough. Then I got another message. This time from someone higher up. Can you join a review session tomorrow? I leaned back, breathing slowly. Because now it wasn't just the audit team. It was leadership. And whatever they had found. It was big enough to escalate. The next day I walked into the review meeting. He was already there. So were two senior leaders. And the audit team. The room felt heavy. No one smiled. They started with questions. About processes. About timelines. About data sources. He answered most of them. Smooth. Confident. Like always. But then they asked about the report. The one with the wrong number. He explained it. Carefully. But something was off. His explanation didn't match the data. I could see it. So could the audit team. They asked a follow-up question. Then another. Each one tighter. More specific. His answers slowed. Just slightly. Then they turned to me. Can you walk us through your version? I nodded. Come. Clear. Step by step. No extra words. Just facts. When I finished, the room went quiet. And for the first time, he didn't have control of the story. But this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. After that meeting, everything changed. Not openly. Not officially. But you could feel it. Leadership started asking more questions. More reviews. More checks. His work was no longer taken at face value. It was examined. Closely. He noticed. Of course he did. He became more careful. More controlled. But also more tense. That tension led to mistakes. Small ones at first. Then bigger ones. And each time I documented. Quietly. Consistently. Then something unexpected happened. The role I applied for? I got an interview. It was scheduled fast. That told me something. Word was spreading. Not rumors. But signals. About performance. About reliability. About trust. I prepared carefully. Because this wasn't just an exit anymore. It was leverage. It would be on my terms. But before anything could change, one final review was scheduled. A full leadership panel. And both of us were required to attend. The days leading up to the panel felt slow. Heavy. Every moment stretched. He tried to act normal. But I could see it. The pressure was getting to him. He started double-checking things. Asking for updates. Trying to regain control. But it was too late. The system he built was too big now. Too exposed. I stayed steady. Focused. Ready. Then the night before the panel I got an email. From the audit team. Attached were several documents. Highlighted. Flagged. Including multiple reports. Not just one. This was bigger than I thought. Much bigger. They weren't looking at a single mistake anymore. They were seeing a pattern. And patterns don't disappear. They grow. I closed my laptop slowly. Because now I understood something clearly. Tomorrow wasn't just a meeting. It was a turning point. And whatever happened in that room would decide everything. The panel room was full. Senior leadership. Audit team. Sir. Everyone. This was serious. They started with him. Asked him to present his results. He did. Confident. Structured. Like always. For a moment it almost worked. Then the questions began. Vivid, precise, relentless. They showed the reports. Side by side. Differences highlighted. Timelines compared. Access logs included. His voice changed. Still calm. But slower. More careful. Then they showed something new. A sequence of edits. Across multiple files. Link back to him. The room went quiet. He tried to explain. But the pattern was clear. Too clear. Then they turned to me. One final time. Do you have anything to add? I looked at the documents. Then at them. And said one sentence. All my original records are already included. And that was enough. Because everything they needed was already there. The decision didn't happen in that room. But the outcome did. By the next day access changed. His permissions were reduced. Quietly. But everyone noticed. Meetings were cancelled. Projects reassigned. And then the announcement came. An internal review had found serious inconsistencies. That was the wording. Careful. Controlled. But the meaning was clear. He was no longer in charge. I saw him once that day. Sitting alone. Looking at his screen. For the first time. He looked unsure. But it didn't stop there. Because once leadership starts digging, they don't stop. More files were reviewed. More decisions questioned. And the deeper they went, the worse it got. What started as one mistake had become something much bigger. And now it was public inside the company. But there was still one final step. One that would make everything official. A few days later we were called in again. Smaller group this time. Just leadership and HR. The tone was clear. This was the end. They explained the findings. Carefully. Step by step. Patterns of misrepresentation. Improper use of access. Failure to verify data. Each point supported. Each one documented. He tried to respond. But there was nothing left to argue. The facts were too strong. Too consistent. Then they turned to me. Acknowledged my records. My consistency. My clarity. No praise. Just recognition. Professional. Clean. The way it should be. Then came the final outcome. His role was terminated. Effective immediately. No drama. No scene. Just over. And just like that, the position he fought so hard to take was gone. But the moment that stayed with me wasn't that. It was what happened after. When he looked at me, like he finally understood. The next week felt quiet. Almost too quiet. Like everything had reset. The role I interviewed for, they offered it to me. Better team. Better leadership. A clean start. I accepted. On my terms. No rush. No pressure. Just a clear move forward. On my last day in that team I packed my things slowly. No one said much. But I could feel it. The shift. The understanding. The truth had settled. Not loudly. But fully. As I walked out I thought about that first meeting. The one where I sat frozen. Where he took everything. And I realized something. He didn't actually take anything. He just delayed it. Because in the end, everything came back. Not through anger. Not through noise. But through control. Through patience. Through truth. And that lasts longer than any title. I didn't need to win loudly. I just needed to win right. And I did.